I'm a consultant, but a full-time now for one client, which is the Joint Policy Committee. And the Joint Policy Committee is a joint effort of 4 regional agencies. So the 4 are the Association of Bay Area Governments, or ABAG, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, our air district for the 9 counties, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which covers transportation, planning, and funding for the 9 counties, and the Bay Conservation and Development Commission is our newest member. So those 4 make up the JPC. State legislation set up the JPC, and our board is made up of 5 elected officials from each of those 4 boards. So I was thinking on the way down here, Alameda County, we have Jane Bruner, Tom Bates, and Scott Haggerty. Those are, I think, the 3. And again, we're covering the 9 county areas, so Alameda County has 3 of the 20 members. And the Joint Policy Committee has 1 staff person, and they have been working for the last few years on the FOCUS program and on smart growth in general in the Bay Area. The agencies felt that that was the biggest issue, that they needed to start working together in a better way on the transportation and land use issues all around smart growth. And then last year they decided, smartly, I think, that climate should become their second key issue to work on, and they then hired me as a full-time consultant. So I work for JPC and JPC only right now. What I thought I would do is quickly tell you kind of in a list of the 6 joint actions that the Joint Policy Committee agreed on for climate for the next year or 2, and then go into Climate Bay Area, which is our new kind of project. So the 6 joint actions are, and one of our agencies is the lead on each one of these 6. So the first is to successfully implement SB 375, which is the big legislation on transportation and land use for the region. And that is MTC and ABAG in co-leading that one. And my boss at the JPC, the 1 staff member I mentioned, Ted Dropman, 375 is really his effort. Second, and so 2 through 5 now have more to do with me. Second is the Air District is taking the lead on developing an indirect source rule, as they're called, for the region. San Joaquin has one, so and there are a couple of others in the state. This would be regulating new development. It could be existing development. It would probably be new development of any sort, and new development would have to mitigate mobile emissions that would be produced by their either housing or commercial or industrial development. And they would either have to mitigate those emissions. You would measure the emissions that would come from a new project. They'd either have to zero them out or pay into a fund to offset them somewhere else in the region. So the Air District has just started on this. It's called Indirect Source Rule. And afterwards, later I can give you contacts if you're interested for each one of these things. The third is MTC is taking the lead on developing what we're calling climate-friendly parking policies, because parking pricing and parking management is clearly one of the most powerful tools that we don't use much at this point, but we could use in terms of transportation emissions. So MTC is working on this. We're at the early this is at the study stage. There are no policies yet. There's no proposal yet. It's going to be a big political issue. Parking is a hot issue everywhere you go. But there's some good examples now of interesting approaches to parking that cities are taking in other parts of the state, and so we're starting kind of with their success stories. The fourth is making the Bay Area the electric vehicle capital of the universe. I think it officially says of the country, but we're calling it university. This one, too, we're just starting out on, and there are no staff. The MTC and Air District have the co-lead on this one, but there are no staff devoted to it yet. They're just pieces of different things. So we're working with folks who are working full-time to make this happen in the advocacy community and elsewhere in the Bay Area to see how we can help in supporting this one. It'll probably end up looking like a regional strategy around electric vehicles, tying together maybe a lot of the different pieces, but we're still looking at what would really be helpful for our regional agencies that we could add to the electric vehicle mix. And the fifth is ABAG is taking the lead on designing, at this point, a energy efficiency and solar financing district that could work region-wide or could work in different counties. So yet another version of Berkeley First or the AB 811 program. So ABAG's looking, they've hired Brian Gitt, and they're looking at a lot of different ways that ABAG, again, as a regional agency, could help move this strategy ahead. And the last is providing coordination for climate adaptation strategies. BCDC, of our 4 agencies, has done quite a bit on sea level rise, and you've probably seen, a fair amount of what they've done already in the papers and all. You might have seen BCDC just did a design competition. Did anybody see the Rising Tides? It was interesting. International design competition. We like this kind of thing. Something with a little pizzazz for a public agency. They got 130 entries from 18 countries. They had a very expert jury, judge. These were to look at sea level rise for the Bay and start to look at these were architects and engineers primarily. What would they think of in terms of design for dealing with that future? And they set up they got there were 6 winners. They couldn't pick one, so they picked 6. And among the 130, there are wild entries and there are very practical ones. It's really an interesting piece, and you can see it at Rising Tides. It's either .org or .com. It's probably .org. And we're going to use it now and take it kind of around as a traveling show. So 6 is really about adaptation and about providing coordination for a lot of the work that's starting at different cities and different areas. I'm interested in the Bay Localize project that I just read about for the first time today on resiliency. So what, again, I think we can do as regional agencies is knit some of that together and provide some coordination for it. We are very close to getting a deal for about a $300,000 scientific effort that would pull together all the research on climate impacts in this region in one place and do some new research where it's needed, but mainly pull together. It would be the top climate scientists in the state working on this. And we're about to hopefully get that deal signed, and they're putting up the money for it. So we're happy to be the first region really in the state that would do this kind of a scientific summary, and we think it would be very important. San Diego did something, or is doing something like this, and we think it would be important so that as regional agencies and as elected officials, we're not going out and saying, here's what's going to happen in the Bay Area. We're saying, here's what our best scientists in California are telling us is going to happen in the Bay Area in terms of impacts, in terms of vulnerable populations, the whole set of things. And again, there's been a lot of focus on sea level rise here, but there are a whole series of other impacts. And so we would be looking at all of those and pulling those together in a document that then could be a foundation document that could be used by a lot of groups. We think this could be helpful in 2 ways. One, to get more attention paid to adaptation and the need to plan now for the kinds of communities we're building and redeveloping so that as the impacts hit, sooner than later, we are more prepared for them, and particularly in terms of vulnerable populations. The second, we think, is we can get more attention for all the mitigation work. We think by more clearly spelling out what is happening in the Bay Area, not just what's going to happen, what's happening in the Bay Area, what is going to happen, we can get more attention and more buy-in for moving more quickly on the mitigation work that's so important. So those are our 6 things. They're all in various stages of development, and my job is to take a stick and just keep them moving, keep the staff working on them, keep the staffs working together. On the 6th one and on the 4th one, the electric vehicles and the adaptation, I'm playing a more proactive role because the staff are not quite set on